Okay, something weird is going on with Bill Belichick. The six-time Super Bowl winning coach, the man known for his ironclad control over his personal privacy, as well as his legendary distrust of the media, is suddenly showing major departures from his typical behavior, and people are worried about it. The 73-year-old is showing up on red carpets and starring in commercials and handing over controls for his public relations to a 24-year-old woman with no professional experience in PR. Oh, and she just so happens to be his girlfriend. And that's before this happened in a recent CBS Sunday Morning interview.
Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
What's more, the timing of all of this seems to be a concern to many. For example, the start of their relationship also coincided with his retirement from the legendary Patriots, an adjustment period that can be really hard and can put a person in a weird place. Now, this could all just be some kind of like three-quarter life crisis, of course. Maybe it's just a new chapter and he's just decided to go by a different playbook for this season and everything is totally fine. But on the other hand, there is enough here that looks very familiar to me personally as someone who has litigated claims of financial elder abuse and undue influence, that looking at this whole situation makes me personally a bit unsettled. And so in this video, we're going to talk about the possibility that Belichick is maybe getting unduly influenced by his much younger girlfriend, the red flags, the mitigating factors, and in the end, whether this looks as worrisome as it might appear at first blush. Let's get into it. Okay, so to start, if you're new here, my name is Alita and I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC. I've represented clients in cases where financial elder abuse was a major claim. And so I've analyzed a lot of situations where you have an older person who is maybe in the twilight of their life and all of a sudden some new person arrives and big things suddenly start changing. It's often when the elder has some sort of a transition in their life, especially if there is some kind of a social or emotional loss of some kind. Recently widowed, recently divorced maybe, recently retired, moved to a new location, maybe they're far away from their adult children. Maybe their adult children actually physically live nearby, but they're not really close enough emotionally to be able to really bond or otherwise help to fill the gap of whatever seems to be missing in this elder's life. Transition and loss are major factors leading to loneliness for a lot of elderly people. And when you combine that loneliness with a person who also happens to be sitting on a pile of cash, you have a situation where someone can walk in and just fill that entire emotional gap completely for a cost. This could be a romantic partner who's maybe a little bit younger or a lot younger, or maybe it could be a new friend or a neighbor who all of a sudden is spending a lot of time with this elder. This person maybe starts by helping out here and there, then offering to take on more from the elder so that they don't have to worry about pesky little details. And then after some time, before you know it, the elder has become almost entirely reliant on this person as they've intertwined their interests and their intentions and their motivations and perhaps even their financial goals. The next thing you know, the elders may be remarried to this younger interloper, or the neighbor becomes the trustee of the trust, and the adult kids have suddenly been totally disinherited along with all of the charitable causes that the elder actually really cares about. And too often, it's only after the elder actually passes away that the adult kids bury their parent and then start getting to work to wrap up all of their parents' affairs, only to find that, holy crap, dad changed absolutely everything. And so his entire estate, which by the way has everything that mom had as well, because everything transferred over to him when she passed away and they intended for everything to go to the kids, is now going to this new chick that he basically just met in the last decade. You would be astonished at how many times cases like that happen. And in my experience, they also come with all of the family drama that has been bubbling over or brewing just beneath the surface for years. And so when I look at the story of Bill Belichick and his much, much younger girlfriend, Jordon Hudson, I'm not going to exaggerate for clicks. I'm looking at this as an attorney, analyzing it as if it is a fact pattern of a potential case to work on. Based on the information that I've seen, I wouldn't say outright that I think that Hudson is engaging in financial elder abuse or undue influence, but I will definitely say that there are enough red flags here to say that I'm concerned, and I really do hope that there is a good network of family and friends that he can genuinely trust to make sure that things don't get too wonky. Let me back up for a minute so that I can explain what I mean. If you're not familiar, Bill Belichick is a star former coach of the legendary New England Patriots. He was hired on as head coach in 2000. In the same year, the Patriots also plucked from obscurity a man by the name of Tom Brady. And once these two were put together, magic happened and a dynasty was created.
Vinatieri. No time on the clock, and the Patriots have won Super Bowl 36. Unbelievable.
A team that lost 6 of their 8 final games in the 1999 season quickly became known as the favored team in the league to win the Super Bowl each year. And by the time Belichick left the NFL, he had collected 6 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots, as well as 2 as an assistant coach with the Giants. Now, despite all of this success, Belichick has always been known to be very short with the press, leading to countless awkward exchanges in interviews and press conferences.
You've prepared to face this Peyton Manning-led offense more than 20 times in your coaching career. Is there one common thread that stands out to you over the years?
I guess, man.
And most notably, he's also been known to be very guarded about his personal life.
Friendships that are important to me, and that's what that was about. So it's not about politics, it's about football. We got a huge game this week against a great football team, great organization, and that's where it all is going forward on Seattle. All right.
Coach, were you happy or annoyed that Trump read the letter?
Seattle.
But your team's always been good at keeping outside distractions on the outside. Given the nature of this presidential race,
Seattle.
Did you find it
Seattle.
Helpful to talk to your players about this? If any of your players talk to you about this, are there any concerns about any locker room rancor as a result of this?
But starting around 2020, there were a number of things that started to shift for Belichick. First of all, when NFL veterans reported to training camp on July 28th, 2020, COVID-19 had already changed life across the United States. And that didn't exclude everyone working in the NFL. Between daily testing requirements to strict social distancing requirements impacting how teams could practice in the offseason leading up to the season opener, and not to mention how they could conduct this year's draft as well, to mask rules that issued fines for noncompliance, to having to play for empty stadiums, there were a ton of wrenches being thrown all across the league all at once. And then, also around this time, in March 2020, Tom Brady, the star quarterback of the Patriots for the last 2 decades, left New England as a free agent and then signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Although they had experienced a massively successful partnership together for 2 decades, there were a number of suggestions that growing discontent between the two in recent years was a significant factor in Brady's departure. And a few years after that, Belichick parted ways with the Patriots himself.
Decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
Reports in 2024 pointed to the Patriots' struggles following Tom Brady's absence for the reason Patriots owner Robert Kraft fired Belichick.
I didn't enjoy having to fire him, but I tried to do it. If you look at the press conference and how it happened, try to do it in a classy way. And what he did for us was great. People need to adapt. And if they don't, or look at you folks together, things can change. In life, it's about getting good chemistry and trust and feel that, our record the last 3 to 4 years wasn't what I wanted. And I had given him so much power. He had full control over everything. And shame on me. I should have had some checks and balances better.
And interestingly enough, considering everything people have been noticing about Belichick recently, one of the more specific reasons seems to be Belichick's failure to adapt to the changes in the NFL. Now, also around this time, yet another major shakeup happened in Bill Belichick's life. Behind the scenes, another chapter of his life quietly came to an end as Belichick and his longtime partner Linda Holliday ended their relationship in 2023. Bill, now 71, and Linda, 60, began dating back in 2007. For years, they seemed like a steady couple, couple often seen together at events. But according to sources close to them, their relationship had been pretty separate for a while. It wasn't a sudden break, it was more of a slow drift. But despite the slow parting of the two, the split was reportedly complicated by the fact that she was the president of the Bill Belichick Foundation. According to its website, the foundation is a charity devoted to giving coaching, mentorship, and financial support to individuals, communities, and organizations. And despite the fact that they weren't married, in the midst of their breakup, Belichick was giving Holiday a house that he had purchased for the two of them in Jupiter, Florida, where Holiday is originally from. Now, aside from the relationship changes, there was also yet another major change for Belichick, because in December 2024, the University of North Carolina announced that they had hired Belichick as their new head coach. This marks a brand new chapter in a whole new environment for the legendary head coach. And now, taking a step back, these are all monumental shifts in a person's life that also mark potential risk factors because of the adjustment and at least temporary instability that they represent. Adjustments into a new phase of life, potential feelings that the highlights of your career are all behind you, particularly when that career was especially successful, and transition into new social networks. These are all things that can throw a person's life off balance if they don't have other mitigating factors to prevent someone else coming in and throwing everything upside down. And now the factor of the entrance of Jordon Hudson into Belichick's life. They reportedly met in February 2021 on a flight from Massachusetts to Florida. At the time, she was a sophomore in college and a cheerleader at Bridgewater State. Before that, she was reportedly a henna tattoo artist and a hairstylist, and most recently, she's been competing in the Miss Maine USA pageant in Portland, Maine. But since 2024, the now 24-year-old has also been officially romantically linked with now 73-year-old Bill Belichick. And since then, it looks like Belichick has been doing things pretty differently in comparison to his past. For one thing, he appears to be engaging in more public displays of affection and doing more visible outings with Hudson. For another, he seems to be stepping out at more glitzy events. And he's appearing in a greater number of personal social media posts, particularly in Jordon's Instagram account. And that's not to mention commercials for companies like Dunkin' Donuts.
Squad, Dun Kings sequel. Affleck's and Belichick. Dun Kings! A little more spirit on the, on the charge next time. All right. We got a fourth Dun King, too, coming.
What's more, she's reportedly exerting a very high degree of influence in Belichick's football program at UNC since he was named the head coach. This includes decisions surrounding Belichick's role as head coach at UNC, as well as negotiations with NFL Films about a Hard Knocks documentary. This documentary is one of the most talked about incidents. As planned, it was supposed to document Belichick's transition from the NFL to leading the UNC team. While Belichick reportedly wanted the project and it was apparently close to completion, industry sources claim Hudson played a major role in shutting it down right at the very last minute, allegedly requesting significant involvement in the production. This after she apparently identified herself as the chief operating officer of Bill Belichick Productions, which may or may not even exist, apparently. And her involvement doesn't seem to stop there. She also is reported to have emailed back and forth with UNC's media team about the decision to hire Stephen Belichick, Bill's son, as the defensive coordinator. Hudson apparently wrote to them to instruct them on how to frame it for the public. She reportedly expressed concern over the perception of nepotism in the hire and told them not to refer to Stephen as Bill's son, or to use photos of Bill and Stephen to prevent controversy. In fact, her recent actions have caused enough concern to UNC that there have been reports that the university's athletic department has apparently banned her from the football field and the football facility in general. And Belichick himself felt it was necessary in a recent interview to talk about how he says Hudson isn't impacting his ability to lead the football program at UNC. This most recent interview followed the controversial CBS Sunday Morning interview.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordon Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the philosophy.
Jordon was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordon right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordon, where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordon on your feet, and she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
What he does follow isn't clicks or views, but touchdowns and above all, wins.
Interestingly enough, this reportedly was just one of a number of times Hudson interrupted the interview. And she also apparently got upset and stormed off set at least once, causing a 30-minute delay. It was reportedly enough to spook the interviewer, and a planned second interview has now been canceled. And in the wake of the interview, Belichick and Hudson saw tons of backlash, enough that Belichick decided to break his usual silence on personal matters to defend her. Belichick clarified that Hudson wasn't trying to dodge questions, but was keeping the interview on track. She wasn't deflecting any specific question, he explained, adding that they had always been open about meeting on a flight to Palm Beach in 2021. He criticized the final segment, saying it was selectively edited to suggest Hudson was controlling the conversation. The final 8-minute segment doesn't reflect the productive 35-minute conversation we had, he emphasized, calling the narrative misleading. And he said, prior to this interview, I clearly communicated with my publicist at Simon & Schuster that any promotional interviews I participated in would agree to focus solely on the contents of the book. Unfortunately, that expectation was not honored during the interview. Now, for their part, CBS says it was agreed by all parties going into the interview that it would be a wide-ranging interview and that there would be no preconditions or limitations to the conversation. Now, in addition to the public backlash, some people in Belichick's orbit have also apparently expressed some growing concern. Charles Barkley, who apparently has been close friends with Belichick for years, weighed in on the situation in a recent interview.
What is Bill Belichick doing?
Well, this is a very slippery subject for me because Bill's one of my really good friends. I'm not sure what's going on. He's been a great friend for me for a long time. We've been friends since he coached for the Browns. I think he got to be very careful right now. This is starting to be on a very slippery slope. He's the greatest football coach ever for him and Nick Saban, for college Nick Saban, for Bill to NFL. Yeah, I from what I'm hearing, it's starting to be a very slippery slope. And I never talk about people's personal relationship. That's another rule I got. But I will admit I'm a little concerned with some of the stuff that's going on. And I might actually reach out to him and make sure everything's good. But I am concerned from what I'm hearing because, it's not a good look right now. I'll admit that.
And he's such a control freak, but he's relinquished control, it feels like. That's what's surprising to me.
Yeah. Listen, man, I have very strict rules on things about, don't ask me no personal questions. Nobody in my family can speak. No, I'm the one who's famous. I'm the one who have to deal with all the crap. No, don't speak. Don't say anything. Because if you say something, it's just gonna muddy the water. That's what I call it. If any family members speak out, it's just gonna muddy the water. And I'm a little concerned, I'll admit that. Because he's my friend through good, bad, and whatever. And I just hope everything's all right.
And this is after it's already been reported that Belichick's daughter-in-law slammed Hudson for not acting in a professional manner by storming off the set in the interview. And now Belichick's family has apparently expressed greater concerns about what's going on with Belichick and Hudson. Reportedly, there's enough concern about Belichick's legacy, reputation, and everything else he's built over the decades that some members of the family have started to dig into her past. And in that same vein, there's even a theory out there that Hudson may have been intentionally deceitful about her age, as she's theorized to maybe be a year younger than she's been widely reported as. The idea is that this is to hide the fact that she would have been 19 when she and Belichick met as opposed to 20. To be honest, I don't know if there's any truth to that or how much weight we should really be putting into that theory. But then again, if there is truth to it, that is a weird thing to lie about, and in the context of everything else that's been going on, would be a concern in my opinion. But aside from this, Belichick's friends are apparently speaking to the press anonymously, reportedly concerned about his relationship with Jordon Hudson, especially after his controversial CBS Sunday Morning interview. According to a source, it looks like Hudson saw an opening and took advantage of it, slowly making her way into the football coach's life and career. They noted that Belichick, who's known for his strong leadership and authoritative style, seems to have softened in Hudson's presence, letting her direct everything. She's also been described as taking control of Belichick's life and gaining more and more territory, filling a need that he had, and that she was very aggressive. Another source said the relationship was alarming and described Hudson as a runaway train. Okay, but despite all of that, we really have to evaluate the question, is there potential financial elder abuse or undue influence that's really going on here? Because all of these things could be happening, and this could still all be well within Belichick's awareness and consent. Just because he fits the age category for certain protective laws doesn't automatically mean that that's what's actually happening here. So let's look at some factors that might indicate that there is some potential undue influence going on here, and then some potential mitigating factors. So the first area of concern here is an obvious point that Belichick is both rich and famous. Now, it might be hard for some people to think of that as a vulnerability, since people with tons of wealth and notoriety arguably have the ability to get help for practically everything they need in life. But that same wealth can also put a target on someone's back as well. Every person has some kind of emotional or psychological vulnerability that can be exploited if they don't have certain people around them. Even the wealthy need people that are close to them that they can actually trust, people who aren't in their orbit for some kind of payout or benefit to themselves. And I don't really know what Belichick's relationships are like with his adult kids or with his friends, for example. Does he keep absolutely everyone at arm's length, or is there anyone that he trusts implicitly for their counsel and for their guidance? Do his adult kids rely on his name, on his career, on his wealth for their own success? If they're dependent on him in ways that they can't truly be independent as adults, that can also color their ability or inability to speak frankly with their dad, or that might also impact his ability to take them seriously when they try to tell him things that maybe he doesn't want to hear. Now, the next area of concern is the fact that Belichick has obviously gone through some major life transitions in recent years. From the loss of a long-term relationship to the waning success of his NFL career to his ultimate exit from the Patriots and the NFL altogether, this is already enough to make a person emotionally vulnerable to a shiny new person walking in. Then you add on top of that the mixed reports over whether his departure from the Patriots was really a mutual decision, or maybe he was voluntold to leave. And then you have on top of that the feedback that he got in the midst of all of that telling him that he was too rigid in a lot of ways. He may have walked away from that experience thinking, well, I'll show everyone just how adaptable I am, and then maybe made an overcorrection with Hudson here. And now with the outward criticism that he's received aimed at his relationship with Hudson, that could turn a person to become defensive of a relationship that in reality might be taking advantage of them. We've already seen Belichick make multiple statements in Hudson's defense, which is apparently uncharacteristic of him. So if she's unduly influencing him, things might get complicated if he's feeling like the outside world is being unfair to her or to him or to them together. And being able to tease out what's right for her and what's right for him might become difficult for him. Now, on top of that, another factor is the uncharacteristic release of control that Belichick has shown, and specifically handing over that control to Hudson. As I mentioned earlier in this video, multiple sources have remarked that both the level of control that she's exerted and how quickly she's gotten that control are cause for alarm. I mean, she's apparently the COO of Bill Belichick Productions, which, as I mentioned earlier, may or may not even exist as a formal entity. She's been positioned multiple times as his personal PR point person, and there are reportedly emails saying that she's been instructing UNC about how to go about talking about the hiring of Bill Belichick's son, Steven. Now, if she had had a background in PR or some kind of corporate management or entertainment representation of any kind, or even experience living in the public eye, there could be a reasonable explanation for why Belichick would hand over these controls to her so early on in this relationship. But her resume shows she was a cheerleader, a henna tattoo artist, a hairstylist, and now is competing in beauty pageants. Now, I'm not here to say that someone with that background can't become an impressive corporate executive or a successful entrepreneur. I'm just saying it doesn't explain Belichick's seeming confidence handing over all of that over at this point. The only thing I can think of is he might be used to having his romantic partner be somehow involved in his career after Linda Holiday helped to run his foundation for a long time. But now, as concerning as all of that is, there are some mitigating factors here. For one thing, he's obviously still very mentally and physically sharp, and he's out promoting a new book that he just wrote. There are no signs that I have been able to come across that he might be showing any kind of like early signs of dementia, for example, or that physically he can't keep up with the pace of life for all of the things that he's doing. So being able-bodied and able-minded is one less factor to worry about in terms of potential vulnerability to undue influence. Now, another factor that I mentioned earlier in this video is that at least one of his sons apparently works with him at UNC now. While on the one hand, the fact that Belichick was the one who apparently hired his son can be a factor that would complicate Stephen's ability to express hard truths to his dad, the fact that he's nearby and regularly working with his dad means that Stephen is likely to have an open window to be able to check up on his dad and keep an eye on his well-being. And according to reports, it sounds like his kids are overall supportive of him and want the best for him despite their concerns about Hudson. And having a strong, healthy relationship can help to ensure that things don't go too far off the rails. And on top of that, Belichick recently made some moves that suggest he's actually open to hearing criticism and making some course-correcting adjustments that benefit himself in light of that feedback. And this could be partly due to the fact that he currently has aligned interests with UNC to ensure success of their football program. Since many people have called out this whole Hudson topic as a major distraction for Belichick and the UNC team, it's not surprising that UNC would step in behind the scenes and basically say, hey, things need to change immediately or you're going to cause all kinds of trouble for our football program, from recruitment to the team being able to trust your leadership, to the team's performance overall on the field. And now it looks like UNC has hired the former Chicago Bears PR chief, Brandon Farber, to help Belichick in the wake of all of this drama. To be clear, it sounds like Farber is being hired by UNC and not by Belichick, but reports indicate that this is still a clear sign that Belichick is working with UNC to course correct. And according to Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, apparently Belichick is aware of what's being said and how he's being perceived, and importantly, that he's also far from having all of these various pieces figured out. And that is very important for his ability to clearly see this whole situation, to analyze it properly without digging his heels in the event that there is something that is going seriously wrong. But looking at all of this, even with these outward behavioral changes, it is still so hard to say if he's being unduly influenced by Hudson here. And this is typical of cases where there does end up being financial elder abuse or undue influence, where things develop slowly and gradually, usually behind the scenes. It tends to catch everyone off guard when they realize it's too late because there's just so much damage that's already been done. Now, I'm not saying that that is what's happening here. I'm just noting the very real possibility that it could be the case. On the other hand, like I said at the beginning, he could be going through like a 3/4 life crisis. Maybe he's just at an age where he wants to break free from norms and try something entirely different for himself. There are also plenty of people who, in a later season of their life, decide that they want to live life as fully as they can with the time that they have left. And some of the more recent developments with course correction, particularly with the UNC PR chief that was hired at UNC, give me some comfort in the situation that even if some friends think that he's gotten very soft in the presence of Hudson, that he hasn't completely lost his autonomy or his ability to analyze the whole situation properly. That said, considering all of the weirdness that has happened, I do hope that he continues to have some friends and family looking out for him, especially when it comes to events that happen behind closed doors and in situations that are much less likely to gain media attention from the media and from people on social media. But those are my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think that this is a whole ordeal about nothing, or do you think that there's reason to be concerned about Belichick? Do you think that maybe we're focusing on the absolutely wrong angle of this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this, or at least found it interesting or informative. And if you did, I would love it if you would hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods. And if you're new here and you want to see more coverage of crazy cases and interesting legal topics, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is uploaded. And if you're really enjoying the content and you want to know how to best support the channel, consider becoming a member of Bike Club. You can join either through YouTube memberships or by becoming a supporter on Patreon. Links to both are in the description below. Otherwise, see you in the next one.